How's it going, guys? This is Randall Stroud, and today we're going to talk about Canelo Alvarez versus Caleb Plant, the keys to victory. If I was their coach, what would I be telling them in terms of strategy? Let's get into this, guys. Canelo Alvarez, if he wants to win this fight, he needs to establish dominancy early in the fight. This means that he needs to hurt Caleb to the body, to the head, wherever he can. But in order to do that, he's going to have to get past the length and range of Caleb Plant. Since Caleb Plant is a distance fighter that likes to work from the outside, Canelo's going to have to work on his footwork in terms of advancing. Everyone always thinks of footwork in terms of like Muhammad Ali or Floyd Mayweather, but footwork in terms of like Mike Tyson, moving your head and aggressively stepping in and forward at the same time and getting close to Caleb so that you can land those devastating hooks and uppercuts and overhand rights. He's going to have to hurt Caleb early on and get him on that back foot. And he needs to confirm all of Caleb's greatest fears early in the fight, which is this guy can hit hard. Because as soon as you can get into a guy's head and make him fearful of your power, you make him hesitant. And both men are likely to be hesitant in this fight anyways because it's a unification bout, which I'm kind of afraid of. Because this is a unification bout, there is a chance that the first couple of rounds could be a stalemate because both men are cautious. And we don't want that to happen because it could cause the fight, if no one gets knocked out, it could cause it to go to a controversial decision. And there's no need for that to happen when you have the kind of knockout power that Canelo has. So for this training camp, I want Canelo to work on his stepping in and moving your head and closing the gap and cutting the ring off and hurting Caleb early in the fight. And he's going to have to do that by bringing in sparring partners that do not like to stay still, guys that like to move, tall guys, rangy guys. Bring them in. And what Canelo is going to have to do for this fight is he's going to have to treat this fight like it's any other fight. I know it's a unification fight. This is the most important fight of both men's career, but he's going to have to push that to the side, and he's going to have to treat this fight like it's any other fight, and he's going to have to go in there and establish dominancy early on. Because if he doesn't, if he allows Caleb to develop any sort of confidence in this fight at all, then, it could get drug out into a controversial decision because Caleb is a better fighter than Billy Joe Saunders. Hate to say that, but he is. He just has more tools available to him. So what Canelo's going to have to do in this fight, I've said it time and time again, he's going to have to establish dominancy early, and he can do that. He's already proven that he has a good chin. He's not going to be knocked out by Caleb Plant. He's already been hit by the likes of Triple G and never was in danger of getting knocked out. So, Canelo, you are the shorter man. You have less reach. So, you're going to have to get past that jab and cut off the ring and get in on him early. You don't want this to drag into some controversial decision just because you weren't able to close the show. Be a shame if that happened. So, Canelo, I give him the edge in this fight, but do not let those unification nerves get to you, which could happen. All the marbles are on the table. This is your defining fight. So, this fight could be more interesting and controversial than people give it credit for because there's a lot of pressure here. All the marbles are on the table. So, Canelo, good luck to you, my friend. Now, let's move on to Caleb Plant. A lot of people are overlooking Caleb Plant because he doesn't have that pedigree that Canelo has. He hasn't fought the Amir Khans. He hasn't fought the Floyd Mayweathers. He doesn't really have any big names on his resume. He's fought a bunch of guys who have okay records, but they don't have this following behind them. They don't have this name behind them because they haven't accomplished legendary feats in the sport. They don't have the marketability, whatever it is. But Caleb has not been in there with the same killers as Canelo has had. But Canelo's not a god. He's just a man, and a man can be beaten. Caleb is an Olympic alternate, and he has an extensive amateur background in both boxing and kickboxing, and he grew up just a few miles down the road from me in Cheatham County, which is a pretty rough place to grow up. So Caleb is a game fighter. I mean, he buried his own daughter, for God's sake, and then just a year or two ago, his mother got killed by the police. I mean, so Caleb is a determined man. He's not going to go in there and just collect, a paycheck and get knocked out for free. He wants to win this fight. But what Caleb's going to have to do for this camp is he's going to have to put on some muscle. He is kind of a thin guy. He's tall, lengthy, rangy, which are all good things. But he's going to have to put on some muscle. And just like the keys to victory for Canelo, the keys to victory for Caleb are similar in the sense that he has to establish respect early in the fight. And he's going to have to hit Canelo with something that makes him go, wow, I was wrong about this Caleb Plant guy. I need to be careful. I need to hesitate and be more cautious, because Caleb is not going to knock out Canelo Alvarez. It just ain't going to happen. He's not going to knock him out. But if he can hurt Canelo with something early in the fight, he can get him to hesitate just long enough to maybe drag it out to a majority decision, because Caleb has a razor-sharp jab. He's not a stationary target. He loves to move. He knows when to clinch and grab when he has to buy time. So if, and this is not really a big if, but both men are most likely going to come in with some nerves in this fight, because it's a unification bout, and unification bouts are huge. So both men are going to come in with some nerves, and both men are going to be very cautious, especially in that first round, maybe first 2 rounds. But if one of them can be brave enough and say, hey, I'm not scared to lose this fight, and I'm going to hit the gas pedal early on, it all depends on who sets the pace for this fight. But Caleb's going to have to remain unpredictable, because Canelo is sometimes a slow starter, and he could get in there and, get beat up for the first 4 or 5 rounds, which is very likely in this fight. But by that 5th or 6th round, Canelo starts to feel like he's at home, and he starts landing shots at will, and you don't want to you don't want to have shots landing on you from a guy with knockout power. But I will say this, even though Billy Joe Saunders was a legit opponent, I do think that even though Caleb lacks the aggressiveness of Billy Joe Saunders, he does have a tighter defense. So Caleb could possibly last to a decision in this fight if he is sharp, and especially if he follows my strategy of trying to hurt Canelo in that first round or second round to cause even more hesitation. So hurt Canelo early on, get him to hesitate, and remain unpredictable. Switch to southpaw a couple of times here and there. Work the body. Study the fight between Erislandy Lara. Study that fight. Work the body. Get in and get out and use your range. Caleb's going to have to throw the kitchen sink at Canelo, and he's going to have to bring all of his tools from his toolbox into this fight. But like I said, Caleb is an Olympic alternate, and he is a game fighter, so don't completely count him out. My final prediction is I think that Canelo Alvarez wins this fight by late KO in probably the 10th or 11th round. Because this is a unification fight, I think both men are going to carry a lot of nerves into this fight. And I think that it's going to drag on for a little bit longer than people expected. But I think that Canelo is going to realize the seriousness of this fight, and then he's going to pull out a devastating knockout, but it's going to happen much later than people anticipated. That's my prediction, and I hate to say that because I love Caleb Plant. We grew up in the same town. We trained in some of the same boxing gyms here and there. And it would be really cool to see him pull the upset for our hometown. But to be honest, I love both guys. I'm a huge fan of Canelo and Caleb. And at the very least, I just want this to be a great fight. I hope both men have good moments in the fight. I just want to be entertained as a boxing fan. But if I was a betting man, which I'm not, I don't like to gamble. But if I was, I would definitely be putting my money on Canelo. But do not count out Caleb. I do think that he is going to have moments in this fight, and he's going to surprise a lot of people. But all in all, it doesn't matter how the fight starts. It matters how it ends, and it's going to end with Canelo having the victory. But if I am Caleb's coach, if I am Caleb, then I'm going to do everything